Okay, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith, and this is frustration of dealing with noobs on Quora and other websites who don't first of all don't know how to use a Google search engine to find what the real answer is, but secondly insist that we're running out of oil and coal and natural gas and that we're need to use wind and solar, which I'm going to address both of those because where wind and solar work, they work, and where they don't work, they don't work, and there's no sense trying to stick a square peg in a round hole or vice versa. When it doesn't work, admit it doesn't work, and it won't work in some locations, namely the northern half of the United States. Wind and solar flat out will not work, especially in winter. Um, because it's so cold that you cannot get enough energy from the sunlight, especially since half the time it's covered in snow from the heavy snowfall in the northern latitudes. So anyway, on back on the topic of fossil fuels. Now, so the Democrats under Joe Biden tried to force the northern latitude states to convert to heat pumps in their homes instead of using furnaces to burn either natural gas or heating oil. A direct burning furnace is always going to be more efficient than an electric powered heat pump. An electric coal fired power plant, it's only about 40 to 41% thermodynamically efficient at converting the chemical energy of the coal to heat and then to electricity. And then you have a further 15% loss of efficiency in transmission time on the power lines. So that means the systemic efficiency of a heat pump is, and then the heat pump itself is going to have loss of efficiency as well. The systemic heat efficiency of the heat pump is around 30 to 33% efficient, all right, from power plant to heat pump to your home. The total efficiency of burning the fossil fuel directly in a furnace in your house is 100%. All right. So you get literally 3 times the bang for your buck by burning it directly in a furnace as you do running a heat pump off a coal fired power plant. And since the Democrats don't want to do nuclear power, what are you supposed to do? You can't do solar because, as I already explained, the solar is covered in snow in the northern latitudes for, over a quarter of the year when you need it most. And wind turbines either freeze up or don't get enough wind or don't get enough wind at exactly the right time when you need it. But how much natural gas is available in the United States and its territories? And I had to look it up myself, but it's around 3.5 to 3.7 quadrillion cubic feet, which is enough to last for several centuries, as in 3 or more centuries at least, at present consumption levels. We have enough known and easily recoverable coal reserves to last for at least 200 years at present consumption levels. And there's actually so much oil in U.S. territories, and both claimed and unclaimed, that we'll never burn it all. If we burned it all, the whole atmosphere of the earth would disappear. There's so much oil off the coast of California and the east coast of Florida, west coast of California, obviously, and east coast of Florida, which we're not even drilling in, that there's more than Alaska ever had. There's more than the Middle East has. Like if you took Iraq and Iran and combined their oil reserves, the United States has more than that in just California and Florida alone that we are not even drilling in right now. That's not even counting the deep ocean. That's just right on the continental shelf. We know how to drill in 15,000 feet of water already. There's just no reason to do it because we can drill in 5,000 or less feet of water much more easily. But there's oil all over the ocean floor. It's just everywhere. So the Democrats, they want to talk about renewable energy as if the fossil fuels are somehow running out, which they're not. They think global warming is somehow a bad thing, which we're actually still coming out of the ice age. The last time the planet was significantly cooled was during the Tambora eruption, during and following the Tambora eruption, leading to the year without a summer in 1816, which is still the worst famine in world history. Do you really want to go back colder a degree like that was and see how many people would starve to death in modern world population? Because I don't want to see that. But you'd probably have 1 billion people starve to death if Tambora erupted in exactly the same fashion again today, you'd probably have at least 1 billion people starve to death. From global cooling, not global warming, global cooling. Global cooling has killed more life forms on this planet than global warming ever could have. During the last ice age, there was nothing living in the Arctic or high Arctic, nor even in Canada or the northern third of the United States territory on the North American continent, because it was all covered in at least 3 miles thick of solid ice with nothing, not even moss or grass or anything living on it, not even an insect. So you know, then we got these Democrats that want to cool the earth by injecting sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere. That's going to cause acid rain, first of all, which is going to cause us to have to rebuild stuff over and over again from destroying the environment 10 times worse than carbon dioxide ever could. Because sulfuric acid is way stronger than carbonic acid, by the way. And it's going to cause famine, global famine. These people are cranks. They need a real education. And that's what the supposed leaders of the Democrat Party are. No, Nancy Pelosi, Mars was not destroyed by global warming. Mars was destroyed by global cooling, which was a geologic process in this case, from the core being too small to support the planet, and the planet itself being too small, and the dynamo of the planet's magnetic field shut down, which allowed its atmosphere to be blown away by the sun. It was not destroyed by global warming. And it actually has more carbon dioxide in its atmosphere than does the Earth. And in spite of that, it's actually destroyed by global cooling. At least what's left of its atmosphere. It's about 1/100th the density of the Earth's atmosphere, but most of that atmosphere is in fact carbon dioxide. All right, so um, you know, you would think that politicians, and this includes especially Donald Trump because he's one of the worst about it, but on both sides of the aisle, is running their mouth about a topic that they know absolutely zero, not even enough to Google to fact check themselves before they open their mouth. They just start talking about something, and I guess they believe the dumbest person they ever heard talk on the subject rather than believing an expert, and they don't know how to identify an expert after the fact to fact check themselves later and correct themselves, or they refuse to admit they were wrong. And this is on both sides of the political spectrum. But the Democrats are actually worse about it than the Republicans are. And they supposedly pride themselves on education and have college degrees and everything else, and they're dumb as rocks. A person on Quora was asking, how is there that we keep pumping more and more oil and yet there's still more oil in the crust of the earth? I explained it to him this way. I said the earth has been here at least 4.5 billion years, according to the textbook estimates based on how old the asteroids in the asteroid field are. But some computer modeling estimates say that the earth needs to be more like 6 to 8 billion years old to explain its internal geology. Whatever the case, however long it's actually been here, because we don't know, there's no real way to prove it. But let's say if it's 4.5 billion years, the low end estimate. Imagine a single celled microbe reproducing and splitting in two every hour on the hour for 4.5 billion years. That's how you got all the oil and the other fossil fuels, especially the oil and the natural gas. Some microbes, the oil is the broken down remains of the microbe, and some microbes actually excrete the oil or the natural gas. But however they got there, we got it that way. That every hour on the hour, some of them reproduce every 30 minutes actually, but which would be double exponentially compared to the other. But if you just imagine every hour on the hour, the microbe doubles in number for 4.5 billion years with a B, that covers the entire subsurface of the Earth to a depth of several miles in life forms and their remains. That's where the oil and the natural gas come from. The coal comes from dead plants, which are not as ancient in the fossil record. Land plants start around 400 million years ago. Some aquatic plants are a little bit older than that, and algae goes back about a billion to a billion and a half years or so. Green algae, anyway. We don't exactly know how far back red and blue algae go, but it could be right to the beginning of time. But anyway, um, uh, plants go back, trees, small trees go back about 400 million years, and that's where the bulk of coal comes from, is small trees to any size tree, depending on exactly when it was produced. And the colossal collision of plate tectonics that it took to actually fossilize all of that coal and crush it in plant mass and crush it into coal over however many millions of years that took, like in the Appalachians, because I've actually been there. I've seen how the Appalachians are literally folded up like a piece of paper and a pretzel in some places. The rock, you can look at it and it's folded over like that. All right. And then it's folded back like that a few inches further away, like the insane amount of force it took to warp an entire mountain range like that had to have happened in a relatively short time because the coal couldn't sit there and rot and be eaten by insects and animals and other plants and mosses and funguses. It had to be compressed and covered over by a disaster and then compressed even more to keep it from rotting. But it also couldn't be fully petrified because if it was fully petrified, it wouldn't be coal. Understand what I'm saying? So, and that happened. That's one of the faster geologic processes that are around to cover the whole forest and enclose it under the Appalachian Mountains all in one go before it had time to rot or be decomposed by other life forms. It's what we call punctuated equilibrium in geology. Some processes are continual and take forever and forever to happen, and some processes can happen like that, and some processes are somewhere in between. So, when you talk about millions and billions of years, yes, it takes that long for some processes to happen, including saving up that much coal and oil and natural gas in sum total all over the planet. Uh, but I don't know why I'm citing the number. What did I say? 4.5 or was it 3.5 quadrillion cubic feet of natural gas? Because I already know that most listeners can't comprehend what a quadrillion is, and in fact, most listeners can't comprehend what a trillion is, and in fact, most United States senators cannot even comprehend what 1 billion is. They can't. The human brain is not designed to count that high for most people. I don't even know if mine is, and I study this stuff. But especially if you're not familiar with the number very and don't use it very often, you definitely don't know what it means. A quadrillion is a trillion times times a million times 1,000 rather. A quadrillion is a trillion times 1,000. So a trillion is a million times a million. So a quadrillion is a million times a million times 1,000 is what I meant to say to begin with. That is way more than we're ever going to use before we find out a way to replace it.